Well, good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Okay, a nod is good. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are in this world. We are very fortunate to have over 160 people registered for this talk from all across the Hawaii Islands and the US, Canada, and Mexico. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. Oh, I forgot. I should have introduced myself. My name is David. I'm really nobody that important, but that's okay. This morning we're fortunate to have Bishop Marvin Harada, who is I don't know. We're still kind of joking around with this morning that he's kind of the bishop because he still hasn't been to his office in San Francisco yet. So he, of course, in his previous life before bishopness, he was the head minister at Orange County Buddhist Church, also supervising Sacramento Vista, and he's the co-director of the Buddhist Churches of America Continuing Buddhist Education. He graduated from the University of Oregon in Religious Studies, received a master's from the Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley, and went on to study at Chuo Bukkyo Gakuin and also Yukoku University, where he received a master's in Shin Buddhist Studies. Okay, so we're going to start at this time. So we're going to be recording this for archival purposes. So if you kind of don't feel comfortable with your face being on video, please turn off your camera at this time. Other than that, it's a pleasure to introduce Bishop Reverend Marvin Harada.
Can everyone see and hear okay? Okay. So thank you, Reverend David, for your kind introduction. And I'd like to thank the Honolulu and Oahu Hongwanji consuls and the Office of Buddhist Education for this kind invitation to be a part of your seminar today. You shouldn't be too impressed by the academic credentials that Reverend David listed. I always like to tell people that I went to a rural elementary school in Eastern Oregon. There were 25 students in the entire school. And from 8th grade, 1st grade through 8th grade, a 2-room schoolhouse. In my class, there were only 2 of us, one other girl and myself. Sad to say that in the 8th grade, I graduated salutatorian, which is the 2nd highest in your class, but out of a class of 2. So, but eventually I graduated valedictorian, and that's when I graduated from IBS in Berkeley. But how many students do you think were in my class at that time? Yes, I was the only student. So I graduated at the top of my class and at the bottom of my class, both at the same time. Well, I'd like to discuss with you this topic that you can see on the screen, 2 levels of Buddhism. Now, this is not something that you can find in the Buddhist dictionary. So this is sort of my way of explaining Buddhism. And to me, I'd like to discuss Buddhism from these 2 levels, from the practical level and from the truth level. So all of our great Buddhist masters and teachers from Shakyamuni Buddha on, they're all expressing Buddhism at the deep and profound truth level. But my feeling is that the average person is more interested in Buddhism at a practical level, and especially the new person to Buddhism. And they might ask questions like, well, will Buddhism help me live a happier life? Will it help me to ease my stress and anxiety? Will it help me to live a more meaningful life? They might even ask, but will it help to lower my blood pressure? Or will it help me to be more successful in business? Or will it even give me a sort of good karma? So those are the questions that the the beginner or the average person or any of us might ask, the practical level. So there can be this big gap then between this truth level of Buddhism and people who are on the practical level. As a minister, if I'm giving the sermon and I'm trying to talk about Shin Buddhism at this truth level, and then everyone is trying to listen from this practical level, then there's this disconnect, right? There's this disconnect between my message and what people are trying to hear. So I feel that we have that sort of disconnect today. But there are other contemporary Buddhist teachers that I feel are addressing that gap. They're addressing that gap. So I like to look at books by the Dalai Lama, by Dan Harris, ABC Anchor, and Thich Nhat Hanh as some examples. So we have this book by the Dalai Lama, The Art of Happiness. I mean, look at the title. Right there, he's connected with the general audience because everyone wants to be happy. And look at, this is the first paragraph of his book. I believe that the very purpose of our life is to seek happiness. That is clear. Whether one believes in religion or not, whether one believes in this religion or that religion, we're all seeking something better in life. So I think the very motion of our life is towards happiness. To me, in that first paragraph, the Dalai Lama has connected with everyone because everyone wants to live a happy life. So the Dalai Lama's book sold 2 million copies. 2 million copies. So then he followed up with a second book. And look at the title of this one, The Art of Happiness at Work. The Art of Happiness at Work. Now, how do we apply these Buddhist principles of living a happy life to our work life? And that book also sold 2 million copies. This is another book that I think is really wonderful. And I really recommend that, especially all ministers, to read this book, because then you'll have an understanding of what the average person in this country is seeking. So Dan Harris was the anchor for ABC News, and he was the host of the show called Nightline. This is his picture. You can see him still on ABC today. So he wrote this book, 10% Happier: How I Tamed the Voice in My Head, Reduced Stress Without Losing My Edge, and Found Self-Help That Actually Works, a true story. So what happened was Dan Harris had a panic attack on air. So he's doing this TV broadcast, and because he had been living such a stressful life and because he'd been doing drugs and drinking too much, it all came out in a panic attack on air, and he just mumbled over the words he was supposed to say. And he realized that drugs, drinking, work pressure was causing great stress in his life. So he thought, well, I have to do something. What am I going to do about my panic attack? So he was curious about meditation. He thought, well, maybe meditation might help. So he dabbled in meditation, and it was difficult in the beginning, but then he got more into it. And then he went to retreats, and it really helped to ease his stress and anxiety. But then that led him to Buddhism, because he wanted to know, what is the philosophy? What are the teachings that meditation is based on? And many of the meditation teachers that he went to were also Buddhist, and they were kind of touching on Buddhism. So it led to him seeking a truth level, I think. So some people might stop at the practical level. Meditation or something has helped me to ease my stress and anxiety, and they might stop there. But others, I think, may go on to the truth level. What is the philosophy, the teachings behind this meditation? So I'd also like to touch on the great Vietnamese Buddhist master, Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a prolific writer. He's written so many books. And let's look at just the titles of his book are really addressing this practical level that most people are at. So here are some of his titles. No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering. Everyone's suffering. Everyone wants to transform their suffering. Anger, Wisdom for Cooling the Flames. We all have anger. At Orange County, tell a funny story. There was a member some years ago. He came up to me and he had this Thich Nhat Hanh's book titled Anger. And he said, Sensei, it made me so mad. My wife gave me this book by Thich Nhat Hanh and said, here, you need to read this. It made me so mad. So his wife was telling him, hey, you have anger issues. But it made him mad to be given the book on anger. Well, we laughed about it, but there was some truth to it as well. Some other titles: How to Love, Mindfulness Essentials, Being Peace, Fear. The title of the book is Fear. We all have fears. So Thich Nhat Hanh is addressing our fears. Silence, the power of quiet in a world full of noise. Living Buddha, Living Christ. Look at the title of that book. Well, he's connected with the Christian audience as well as the Buddhist audience. Living Buddha, Living Christ. I wonder what that book is about. See? And my favorite is the book No Death, No Fear, Comforting Wisdom for Life. You can find this book easily at the bookstore. It's one of my favorite books by Thich Nhat Hanh. When someone passes away, or if they're particularly grieving, I often share this book with them because to me it's the most comforting book about facing grief and sorrow. And I want to just read a short excerpt. And this is what Thich Nhat Hanh writes about when he lost his own mother, the grief and sorrow he went through when he lost his own mother. Let me just read this short page. The day my mother died, I wrote in my journal, a serious misfortune of my life has arrived. I suffered for more than 1 year after the passing away of my mother. But one night in the highlands of Vietnam, I was sleeping in the hut in my hermitage. I dreamed of my mother. I saw myself sitting with her, and we were having a wonderful talk. She looked young and beautiful, her hair flowing down. It was so pleasant to sit there and talk to her as if she had never died. When I woke up, it was about 2 a.m, and I felt very strongly that I had never lost my mother. The impression that my mother was still with me was very clear. I understood then that the idea of having lost my mother was just an idea. It was obvious in that moment that my mother is always alive in me. I opened the door and went outside. The entire hillside was bathed in moonlight. It was a hill covered with tea plants, and my hut was set behind the temple halfway up. Walking slowly in the moonlight through the rows of tea plants, I noticed my mother was still with me. She was the moonlight, caressing me, as she had done so often, very tender, very sweet. Wonderful. Each time my feet touched the earth, I knew my mother was there with me. I knew this body was not mine alone, but a living continuation of my mother and my father and my grandparents and great-grandparents, of all my ancestors. These feet that I saw as my feet were actually our feet. Together, my mother and I were living footprints in the damp soil. So beautiful, and his books are all beautifully written. So if you go to any Barnes & Noble bookstore, you'll find many books by Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh, and I use their books often in study classes and discussions. and they're very, very well written. So Shin Buddhism, or Jodo Shinshu, to me, we're a little behind in presenting this practical level of Shin Buddhism. And if we're going to reach new people, we have to, in my mind, bring out this practical level from the Shin Buddhist perspective. And there is a practical level of Shin Buddhism. But first, we should address what Shin Buddhism will not get you. So this is what Shin Buddhism will not get you. So Shin Buddhism will not get you $1 million, but it can help you to feel like $1 million. So I'd like to talk about one Orange County member. Her name is Berta Hamada, very devout Shin Buddhist person of the Nembutsu. So one day in class, she attends my study class, and one day in class, I sort of threw out this thought question, and I asked Berta, now Berta, if you had your choice between $1 million or Namu Amida Butsu, what would you choose? $1 million, but no Nembutsu, or Namu Amida Butsu, but no $1 million, one or the other. What would you choose? She said, oh, she laughs. Sensei, that's easy. That's easy. I would choose Namu Amida Butsu. So I have to laugh because if I ask myself that question, I have to at least pause and think about it for a minute or two. Ooh, $1 million? Just think what I could do with $1 million. But Berta Hamada, no moment of hesitation. So clear. I would choose Namu Amida Butsu. More than $1 million, more than $10 million, more than $1 billion. Because she's touched on it at this truth level. So she's not a wealthy person, but she has this wealth of the Dharma. Buddhism won't cure your cancer, but it can give you the spiritual strength to face, to even embrace your cancer. And that is where this practical level of Buddhism and the truth level of Buddhism now begin to merge and connect. So I'd like to talk about one of our members, the late Kerry Nakagawa. She grew up in Hawaii, in Kona. I don't know her maiden name. Nakagawa is her married name. We lost Kerry last year, about a year ago, to pancreatic cancer. She was so active here. She was a Girl Scout leader. She was a Dharma school teacher. She was involved in everything. She was chair of our ministerial scholarship committee, but she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And her family, shared with me that even after being diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, Kerry's demeanor never changed. Her demeanor never changed. She goes to the doctor says, oh, I'm sorry, we have terrible news. You have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I mean, that's like one of the worst cancers you can get, right? And now it's stage 4. And her demeanor, her everyday demeanor never changed. Oh, is that right, doctor? Well, thank you very much. She goes home. She's her same self. Then they tried chemotherapy treatments, but they didn't work. The doctor has to say, I'm sorry, chemotherapy doesn't work. Oh, is that right, doctor? Well, thank you very much. Demeanor doesn't change. All the way through to the very end, her demeanor never changed. Oh, and so I think that the reason why her demeanor never changed was her foundation of a life of Namu Amida Butsu, of the Buddha Dharma, which enabled her to face this terrible illness, to face the end of her life, but with this depth, and even the last 2 months of her life were just as meaningful and fulfilled as her entire life before. Her demeanor never changed. We also have Ayako Suzuki, who was the wife of a Jodo Shinshu minister who died of cancer. I translated a few poems by Ayako Suzuki into English. There's a book about her. It's titled in Japanese, Gan Kokuchi no Atode, which means after the diagnosis of cancer. So Ayako Suzuki was the wife of a temple minister, so she was around Buddhism her whole life. But she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Then she realized that she had not really encountered the Dharma because it just shook her up to the core of her being. Now she began to listen intently to the Dharma, and in so doing came to really receive the depth of Namo Amida Butsu. And from this book of her poems, I've translated just a few. I want to just share a couple with you. Her poem goes, if one awakens to death, one feels much stronger about life. Exact opposites melt into one, and there is an incomprehensible peacefulness. See, so already resolving this matter of life and death, feeling a sense of peacefulness despite the fact that your cancer is terminal. You just have a limited days and weeks left of your life, but yet there is a peacefulness. Another poem. Now, as I sit here talking and laughing with my husband and children, I realize that we have done so for maybe thousands of times. But when I reflect that there might not be tomorrow, I feel like embracing them all. See, normally we have dinner with our family and it's just another dinner with the family. We don't think anything about it because we always think, well, there's always tomorrow and the next day and the next year and the next month. But for someone who's facing terminal cancer, she doesn't know if there might not even be tomorrow. And now thinking, maybe this is my last dinner with my family, I feel like embracing them all. See, I feel like embracing them all. And a final poem. I will become Namo Amida Butsu for my children. I will become Namo Amida Butsu for my friends and temple members. When you think of me, please say Namo Amida Butsu and I will call the Nembutsu in return. When I first read her poem, I didn't quite understand this poem because I thought, how do you become a word when you die? But for Ayako Suzuki, Namo Amida Butsu is not just a word, it is a deep and profound truth. And even though her physical life comes to an end, she becomes one with that profound and timeless truth of the Dharma of Namo Amida Butsu. So that's why she becomes Namo Amida Butsu for her children that she leaves behind. She becomes Namo Amida Butsu for her friends and members of her temple. And if they say Namo Amida Butsu, then they are one with her, and she is one with them. I'd like to share another individual, the late Scott Morris from Orange County Buddhist Church, who died of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, some years ago. Now, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, is one of the saddest illnesses you can get because there's absolutely no cure. The most you can hope for is that your ALS is a slow developing ALS. Maybe you might be able to live 10 years, maybe 15 years. Some people only live a year or two after being diagnosed with ALS. So it's a degenerative disease. It starts with your feet and it works its way up your body. So his first symptom was that he kept stumbling. He kept stumbling. I thought, gee, I'm such a klutz. What's the matter with me? Then when he was tested, he found out he had ALS and it was affecting the nerves in his feet. And it starts to work its way up. Then you can no longer walk. Then it works its way up further. And then now you cannot use your arms and your hands, and then it works its way up further, then you cannot speak, and eventually it takes your life when you can no longer breathe. So Scott was not raised a Buddhist, but his wife was a Buddhist, and their family started attending OCBC, some years ago. And then he came down with this ALS, and as I mentioned, there's no cure for it. So OCBC, we created what we called a Living Through Illness support group. This was a once-a-month group for people who had some kind of serious illness, or someone in their family had a serious illness. And we would meet and we would talk, and they would share what they're going through with their illness. And then I would try to interject some things about Buddhism that might help them. Well, in one of our sessions, Scott was quite sad, and he was talking about how he would probably miss out on many major events in his family's life. He probably wouldn't live long enough to be at his son's high school graduation. When he was diagnosed, he had young children, maybe about 9 years of age and 7 years of age. He realized he would not live long enough to be at his daughter's wedding, to walk her down the aisle. And so he was quite sad. So I was thinking, well, what can I say to Scott that might help him? So I thought, well, at the time he was still able to write and type. So I encouraged Scott to maybe write letters to his children that he would want them to read at those milestones, in their life. Write a letter to your son that you want him to read at his high school graduation. Write a letter to your daughter that you want her to read at her wedding someday. You can leave those letters with your wife, and she can share them with the children at those milestones in their life. And in that sense, you can be there. So we left that session with that suggestion. So the next month, we had another one of our sessions. And the first thing when we started was Scott said, "Hey, Sensei, I wrote something." So I thought maybe he wrote one of those letters to one of his children. But instead, he shared this poem. He had composed a poem. And this is Scott Morris's poem. "I have ALS, and I am grateful. I am grateful to retire early to be with my family. I am grateful I have family and friends that are so supportive and hopeful. I am grateful I can still walk and get around. When that is gone, I am grateful I can still use my hands to feed myself. When that is gone, I am grateful I can still breathe and laugh and feel. When that is gone, I am grateful I had a wonderful life. And when that is gone, Namo Amida Butsu." See, Scott came to encounter Namo Amida Butsu not just as a word, not just as a recitation, but as a deep and profound truth. He came to encounter the Dharma at the truth level, at the truth level. This poem I put right up there with any of the poems by the Myokonin. It's so beautiful and profound. So Scott came to experience and appreciate Namo Amida Butsu at this truth level, truth level. So Namo Amida Butsu at the truth level is something profound, something timeless, something deeply true. So initially, we might be interested in Buddhism at the practical level, but if we continue on the path, we will encounter it at the truth level, as we've seen by the lives of Kerry Nakagawa, or Roberta Hamada, or Ayako Suzuki, or Scott Morris. So Shinran Shonin, he's always talking about the Dharma from this truth level. And there's a passage from the Tanni Sho that expresses this truth level understanding of the Nimbutsu. In this passage, it's a very famous passage, it goes as follows. But with a foolish being full of blind passions, in this fleeting world, this burning house, all matters without exception are empty and false, totally without truth and sincerity. The Nimbutsu alone is true and real. The Nimbutsu alone is true and real. That's page 679 of the collected works of Shinran, if you want to look at that passage later. So this expression he uses, this fleeting world, this burning house. So this is a metaphor that appears in the Lotus Sutra. It's the parable of the burning house. And what Buddhism is trying to show us is that we are like little kids that are playing in a house, but this house is on fire. And people try to get the kids out of the house and say, get out of the house is on fire. But the children are so caught up in their play, they don't hear the words of caution from other people. So the Buddha uses expedient means and says to the children, hey kids, I got some great toys out here. Why don't you come out and see these toys? And that's what draws the children out of the burning house. So the Buddhism is saying that we're living in this world of samsara and we're caught up into it. We don't even see that we're in this burning house. And we have to seek the Dharma. So we have to get out of the burning house, seek truth. So this burning house is the world of samsara, our secular world that is brief, fleeting, and false in comparison to the world of truth. So, these are very challenging words from Shinran Shonin. He is saying that everything in our life, our work, our assets, our relationships, everything is false and temporary in comparison to the Nimbutsu that is true and real. So the Nimbutsu alone is true and real. So this passage from Shinran Shonin was a very favorite passage of Shigaragi sensei, whom I studied under at Ryukoku University. And quite often in his lectures and in his Dharma talks, he would bring up this passage. So Shigaragi sensei taught us that we have to select and choose truth over secular things that are false and fleeting. We have to select and discard what is false, and we have to select and choose that which is true. I mean, all of you had to make the choice. You could be watching NCAA football right now, but you chose to spend some time listening to the Dharma and reflecting on your life. Or you could be doing any number of things. You could be going out having shaved ice, or eating some delicious food, or going for a walk. But you have chosen Dharma over just recreation. So this passage and what Shigaragi Sensei is trying to say is it doesn't mean that we have to leave our spouses or our homes or our jobs, but it means that we should know that all secular things in life are false and temporary in comparison to the truth of the Nimbutsu. And when we encounter the truth of the Nimbutsu, then we see the sort of false and temporary nature of everything that we thought was so true. Our money, our assets, our house, our car, our relationships. But relationships sadly come and go. We have to part with a loved one someday. Sometimes relationships don't work out. Marriages don't work out necessarily. Friendships sometimes fall by the wayside. But when we encounter those aspects of our life, all the more now this truth side begins to shine vividly to us. The truth of the Dharma, the truth of Namo Amida Butsu. So I think our challenge for future propagation efforts is how to bring out this practical side of Shin Buddhism without it becoming like light Buddhism, like light beer. We don't want to just oversimplify it and lose the depth, the profound nature of the Dharma. So that's our challenge, to somehow present it in a more practical manner that people are all seeking, and that other contemporary Buddhist teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh, Dalai Lama, others are doing. We have to bring out this practical side, but at the same time, maintain the truth level, maintain the depth of the Dharma. So practical level Shin Buddhism must always lead to truth level Shin Buddhism. We can't just stay at the practical level. We have to stay on the path and arrive at the truth level. But the important thing is the process. Buddhism is all about the journey, not about the goal. It's about the journey. So the journey, the truth level, the goal is connected to the practical level in this path. So to be on the path is to be one already with the goal. So I think we have to emphasize that it's important for people to be on the path of listening to the Dharma, on the path of reflecting on the Dharma, on the path of saying Namo Amida Butsu, hearing Namo Amida Butsu, and being led from this practical level of Buddhism to the truth level of Buddhism. So my attempt at tackling this issue is I do a BEC class on resolving life's problems through Buddhism, because I want to show how Buddhism, especially Shin Buddhism, helps us resolve all of our life's problems, all of our life's problems. So the 4 areas that I cover are the matter of life and death, with poems like Ayako Suzuki, passages from Thich Nhat Hanh, how we can transcend, how we can resolve the matter of life and death through Buddhism, especially Shin Buddhism, how we can address relationship issues, how we can address work issues, and how we can address self-esteem issues, low self-esteem or too much self-esteem, the whole topic of the self in Buddhism. So I've been trying to address and make Shin Buddhism more practical by covering these 4 topic areas. So I do this 4-week class showing how Shin Buddhism enables us to resolve all 4 areas of life's problems. That's something I've been doing over the years. But we need to continue to develop even more how to approach the practical level of Shin Buddhism. Because if we cannot communicate this practical level of Shin Buddhism, how are we going to interest those who are seeking the Dharma and connect with them? They will pass us by and go on to other Buddhist traditions that are better, they're better at addressing this practical level than we are. So to me, it's important, very important for our future propagational efforts of Jodo Shinshu. So that is our challenge as we strive to share our Shin Buddhist teachings with the world. I might have ended a little early, but I'll just stop at this point and turn it back over to our moderator. Thank you for allowing me this time to share my thoughts on the practical level and truth level of Buddhism.
I think for the question and answer, we'll go over some of the questions that were already submitted. And if there is time left, we'll take questions from the chat room. Okay, so the, excuse me, the first question is the relationship between practical Buddhism and truth level Buddhism similar to the relationship between relative truth and absolute truth?
Mhm, mhm. So relative truth and absolute truth is something that you will find in the Buddhist dictionary. So, but I think that, those are kind of two separate truths. But my point is that practical level of Buddhism, although it relates to this relative truth, it can help lead to the truth level, that it's connected. Whereas I think, I'm not sure if you could say the same for relative truth and absolute truth. Buddhism says we have to go from relative truth to absolute truth. And the process is Buddhist practice. If it's in the Zen tradition, you have to sit in Zazen. In our Shin Buddhist tradition, we would say it's the path of the Nembutsu. But I think that practical level has to lead to truth level. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. The next question is, what are milestones along the path from practical to truth level? Can a number step process be defined to help temples develop programs to guide seekers?
Right. So unfortunately, it's not like having a recipe for making a cake. You got these ingredients, or it's not quite like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The religious path, a newcomer could have a great insight in a short amount of time. And in Buddhism, we have what's called sudden and gradual enlightenment. And I think this is true for Shin Buddhism as well. In some cases, it's a building process over the course of your entire lifetime. You're deepening your understanding of Nembutsu is something that builds over the course of your whole lifetime. And in other cases, some people may have sort of a very dramatic insight in which they come to a very deep, profound understanding. So I think that both are true. But there isn't a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The important thing is you have to be on the path. You have to be on the path, meaning involved in your listening or you're attending. I know we can't attend in person now, but then you're attending virtually, or you're reading books on Buddhism, or you're finding whatever ways that you can to listen to the teachings, reflect on the teachings, and to be on the path, discuss it with others even.
Next question is, it might be interesting to explore how deeper understanding on the truth level can produce benefits at the practical level. I'm wondering if that's more of a statement, or I guess you want to reflect on that?
Yeah, well, I think I showed in some of the examples today how someone who arrives at the truth level, especially illness, even their own death, is resolved. And so I think we could say the same for, let's say, work issues. Someone who has arrived at the truth level, to me, they're not devastated if the stock market crashes. See, because they've arrived at the truth level. They see that money is, we need money, but it's not everything in life. So even if the stock market crashes, even if their business fails, they're okay. They're okay. See, so that's where this ultimate truth level has implications for the practical level, whether it's your work, whether it's relationships, whether it's illness, whether it's a matter of life and death.
So, throughout your presentation, through the poems and other statements, Namu Amida Butsu came out, right? Mm-hmm. So The next question is, what is the best way to say Nembutsu in our daily lives?
Oh, this is something I learned from Professor Shigaragi, who often emphasized you have to say Namo Amitabutsu. You have to say it in your everyday life. Uh, Sometimes we're in this habit of, well, we only say it when the minister leads us in three Nembutsu. But he often encouraged to say the Nembutsu in your daily life. So I think every person can find, uh, whether you're going for your walk and you're saying quietly to yourself, Naman Dabutsu, you're driving in the car, you got this long hour commute, you could quietly recite Nembutsu while you're working in the yard, while you're preparing dinner, quietly. It's not like it's not always in a huge voice or something, but just Naman Dabutsu, Naman Dabutsu. Then now the Nembutsu and your life becomes more connected. So it could be when you're jogging or walking, but I would encourage people to begin to say Nembutsu in their everyday life. That's wherever you find it easiest and the best way to do it in your everyday life.
I guess in a way it leads to this next question.
Yeah.
How do I find peace?
Well, it depends. So if you're really stressed out and anxious, like this Dan Harris, you might start with meditation. And that's why we offer meditation at Orange County. We started like 20 years ago because I could sense that people are just facing a lot of stress and anxiety, and meditation helps to settle us. We're not trying to copy Zen Buddhism. We're not trying to act like Zen masters or anything like that. And we talk about meditation as just quiet sitting so that we can settle ourselves to listen to and receive the Dharma. Our lifestyle is such that it's hard to just sit quietly and to listen to the Dharma. Even myself as a minister, when I was minister at Orange County, we kind of take turns giving the sermon. And let's say it's not my turn to speak, and so I'm sitting there, and one of the other ministers is giving the sermon, and I'm sitting there on the Naijing, and I look like I'm so attentive and listening, but then my stomach growls, and then I think to myself, "Ooh, what should I have for lunch today? Should I go to Jack in the Box? There's a Jack in the Box right in the corner from OCBC. Should I go to the Jack in the Box? Should I have a chicken sandwich or should I have a jumbo jack? Should I have curly fries or should I have regular fries?" I'm thinking about lunch for 5 minutes and then, oh, what was the other minister talking about? Gee. So it's really hard to listen. So meditation can help settle us, and then so now we can listen and receive. So that might be a start, but I hope that a person finds real peace through the Dharma, Amidst this chaos of life that we have, there is this center, there is this grounding, there's a foundation of our life of the Dharma. And that's where I think you can find true peace. But you might find books like Thich Nhat Hanh's writings on peace as something that's initially helpful to you.
You could probably make another talk about this question, but
okay.
What is Shinjing and how would it affect us in trying to practice Buddhism in our everyday life?
So in Zen Buddhism, the focus is on Satori or enlightenment. In Shin Buddhism, the focus is Shinjin. So this sort of spiritual experience, spiritual insight, spiritual awakening. I translate Shinjin as our true heart and mind, the true heart and mind of the Buddha that we receive from the side of the Dharma. So Shinran's experience was that you can't conjure this up yourself, but it is something that you awaken to, something that you receive. And so that's at the core of Jodo Shinshu. That's really at the core of our life as a Shin Buddhist. So when Namwami Dabutsu truly becomes a part of our life, to me, that is Shinji. So in that sense, it is one with your life, but it's not something that you now you go out and brag about. Oh, yesterday I happened to receive Shinjin, you know, because one of the qualities of a person of Shinjin is that they're humble. Now they're truly humble. And a person that's truly humble is a person who has truly seen their arrogance. And so you go about your life as you did, but in a truly humble but dynamic way.
Okay, I'm going to start taking questions from the chat. There is a question from Reverend Alan Urasaki.
Yes.
Is truth level different or the same as doctrinal understanding?
I think doctrinal understanding is not necessarily truth level, because we could have have the doctrinal understanding. You know, we could get a PhD from Ryukoku University, and you could really know the doctrine, but it could just be in your head, and so it has to hit your heart. But I saw many scholars and many students of Shin Buddhism at the graduate level. They're studying intently, but their objective is not the knowledge, but their objective is the spiritual understanding. So doctrinal understanding is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to have the doctrinal understanding must be at the heart level for it to be at the truth level, I would say.
Okay, the next one is, oh, I know this name. She's one of my favorite writers, in fact. The next question is from Diane Ames. How do we confront injustice?
Oh, let's see. Well, Buddhists have faced various injustices over the entire course of its history, and some of it directly attacking Buddhism. You know, Buddhism has gone up and down and up and down, depending on whether the emperor or the dynasty was pro-Buddhist or anti-Buddhist. You know, we've had periods of time where temples were destroyed, sutras were destroyed, monks and nuns were killed. And then we've also had times where the leader was pro-Buddhist, like King Ashoka in India, Prince Shotoku in Japan, and really helped to propagate and build Buddhism, see? So I'm just so impressed by how the Dalai Lama acts. You know, his whole country, they were all kicked out of their entire country, but yet in a peaceful manner, he continues to work to restore Tibet, to restore his country. But he still does what he can to teach the Dharma outside of his country. Yeah, you would think he'd be bitter and angry about what's happened to Tibet, but you know, you don't see that come out in his life. He's working and doing what he can to restore Tibet as a country, but at the same time, he doesn't show resentment or anger. He shows great compassion.
Okay, the next question, I believe this is Reverend Michael Hayashi. How does Shin Buddhism fundamentally differ from other types of Buddhism, i.e. Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh?
Uh-huh.
Like that question.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, I think we have to say that at the core, you know, Buddhism is all trying to point to the same truth, to the same core enlightenment, great wisdom and great compassion, but our approaches are different. Our approaches are different. And although the Tibetan Buddhism is quite popularized by the Dalai Lama. I mean, if you really want to practice Tibetan Buddhism, it's extremely austere and difficult. The same with Zen. Zen has been popularized, but very few could really follow Zen as it's lived at Eiheiji Monastery, in Japan. And that's where Shin Buddhism, our approach is the everyday person's life. And so that it fits this context. There's no requirement for monasticism. There's no requirement for hours of meditation. It's no matter what our life is, all we have to do is listen and receive. And so that's where I think is the strength of Shin Buddhism, is our approach is something that anyone can follow, and that it doesn't require any particular lifestyle, just to sincerely follow the path, listen, be a student of the Dharma, and come to receive it in your life.
I'd like to welcome Madison, who says that I'm new to Shin Buddhism. Mm-hmm. Shin Buddhists worship Amida Buddha.
Oh, okay. So this is a very subtle point, but something that can cause great confusion for not only the newcomer, but for the long-time Shin Buddhist. So we all know Buddhism starts from Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha. I think the best way to explain and understand Amida Buddha is the timeless heart of the Buddha, the timeless heart of Shakyamuni Buddha. So Shakyamuni Buddha lived and died as a historical person, but the truth of the Dharma is something that's timeless. It's like Newton discovered the law of gravity, but gravity was already here. So Amida Buddha is that truth of enlightenment, truth of the Dharma, truth of the heart of the Buddha, timeless heart of the Buddha. And so it's that timeless heart of the Buddha is symbolized by Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha is not like a god or a deity, although sometimes we get that impression, especially the newcomer. And that's where we have to be more careful about how we present Amida Buddha, how we present the Pure Land, because it can easily be mistaken as, well, it sounds like God, it sounds like heaven to the newcomer. And that's not what it's about in Shin Buddhism. So I would say continue to medicine, keep with your study and listening, and you'll be able to see the subtle difference between Shakyamuni Buddha and Amida Buddha, but really how they are essentially one.
Okay, so right now I would like to open up to everyone here. If you folks have any questions for Bishop. I have like 6 panels, whatever you want to call it. So I cannot see everybody if you were to raise up your hand. So maybe, I don't know, if you have a question, don't all yell out at once, maybe, kind of thing. Okay, maybe, I do have one more question up from the chat, and then I'll get to Dr. Tamamoto. I see his hands. Dexter Marr asks, is your Resolving Life's Problems class available online from OCBC?
Yes, I believe it is. So some years ago, Orange County Buddhist Church, we started an online study program called Everyday Buddhist. And so you can go to the OCBC website, Orange County Buddhist Church website. It'll direct you to the online program. So I believe that class is offered there.
Okay, I believe Dr. Tamamoto had a question.
Sure.
Yes, Bishop Harada. It does. Well, anyway, thank you for your presentation. You you are, I think, emphasizing that maybe as busy people, we are looking for something quick or easy to understand, but sometimes we can't, if we don't spend enough time to actually think about it or actually think about how it might affect our lives, that we cannot get to the truth level. So the people that you showed us examples with ALS and cancer, something major happened so that they come to that realization. But
Yes.
yes, for many of us, we just everyday activities fill up all of our time. How do you advise us?
Yes. So by my examples, I don't want to imply that we have to get cancer to somehow come to understand Buddhism at the truth level. I hope that we could all come to the truth level without having something devastating like that. But we all face challenges in life, whether it's your mother-in-law, and I had a wonderful mother-in-law, by the way, so I'm not talking about my mother-in-law. Whether it's your mother-in-law, it's your boss at work, or it's your teenage son or daughter that you're trying to raise that's challenging. Everyone has sort of life's difficulties. And if you let that life difficulty become like your Zen koan of life, this now becomes your spiritual question. Then I think it can help us to go from the practical level to the truth level. And what does Shin Buddhism have to say about this struggle of life that I'm going through? And use your difficulty of life, your little issue of life, as the sort of fertilizer, the impetus that's going to propel you on the path.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we all have some problems. Something.
So, I'm going to take this one last chat question then.
Okay.
Do you believe that the truth level experience can be achieved outside of Buddhism or even outside of any religion?
Yes, I think many religions are trying to point to that truth level, and we have our own way of approaching it in Shin Buddhism. But I think one can find it through other religious traditions, through Christianity or Islam, other religious traditions as well. So I think the thing is to, once a person kind of can touch on this truth level, then you can see truth level in other traditions. If I could just share one story about one of our wonderful members, Sachi Ochiai. I often tell Sachi Ochiai's stories. She passed away this year at the age of 101. But Sachi, when we didn't have services at OCBC, would go to a friend's Christian church. And so this friend's Christian church, one Sunday, the friend after the service said, "Man, I don't know what that minister was trying to say today." So the friend was complaining about the minister's sermon. And Sachi goes, "Oh, I thought it was a wonderful sermon." And so she's the Buddhist explaining to her Christian friend what the point of the message was. And how is it that Sachi is able to understand or get the message better than the Christian friend? It should have been the other way around. Sachi is new to Christianity. The Christian friend should be explaining to Sachi. But to me, Sachi, because she's touched on the Dharma at a truth level, now she can see it, she can hear it in the world around her.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. We will end here. Let's put our hands together in Gasho and repeat Nembutsu together. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, so we'll take a short break and then we'll come back at about 10:20 for our panel discussion. Okay, so I'd like to once again thank Bishop Marvin Harada for his super awesome talk this morning. And thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. So nice to see all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So during this break, we'll be showing a video entitled Jodo Shinshu Buddhist, a celebration of joy and gratitude. Okay, so thank you very much. At this time, I would like to bring us back together for our panel discussion.
I want to thank the 4 panelists. First is Carol Valentine. Carol is introduced to Buddhism 30 years ago with a Denver Buddhist temple by Reverend Kanya Okamoto. She's currently president of the Lihue Hongwanji. She's been a Dharma school teacher for 15 years, and she's generally an optimist. Carol is married to Wayne Fujioka, who's a very good golfer. Next, we have Pieper Toyama. Pieper is a founding head of the Pacific Buddhist Academy, the first Shin Buddhist high school in the Western Hemisphere. I think almost all of you know Pieper. He is the immediate past president of the Hompa Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii. He's currently vice president of the Jikoen Hongwanji Temple. Lois Toyama is his wife, and Lois has hidden skills as a rapper, for those of you who don't know. Very good rapper. Kerry Kiyohara is a resident minister of Makawao Hongwanji Buddhist Temple on Maui. Kerry came to ministry late in life after a career as a corporate executive, strategy consultant, advertising man, and creative copywriter in Los Angeles, Tokyo, Beijing, Shanghai, and Honolulu. Kerry is originally from Los Angeles and married to Maimi, who incidentally is an excellent cook. I know not because I've tasted any of her food, but I see the photos on Facebook. And delighted to be called grandpa by an 8-year-old granddaughter and 6-month-old grandson. Cristina Gervais is from Hilo, Betsuin Temple. She's a Sangha activities coordinator at Hilo, Betsuin. So she designs activities to encourage interaction among Sangha members at Hilo, Betsuin, and also communication with temples and affiliates. So she started early at Hilo Hongwanji Gakuen at age 4. She's been involved in the 4-H, Junior YBA, Dharma School, Yes Camp. Currently, she assists with Dharma School and Junior YBA at Hilo Betsuin, and a counselor for Yes Camp. So I think Cristina is also going back and forth with Yes Camp. She also coaches age group swimming for the Hilo Aquatic Club. So welcome to our 4 panelists. Thanks for joining us. And let's ask Carol to go ahead and start with your reaction to Reverend Harada's presentation.
I wanted to say thank you to Reverend Harada, Bishop Harada, because I had put together some talking points, and thank you to Reverend David Fujimoto too for helping to clear up where we were going. And I thank Bishop Harada because I think he's right. There are a lot of times when we miss the opportunity to look at other people and bring in some new people because we focus on saying things, using words that are, it's like it's a secret, and we don't explain what those words are. I was very lucky to start my Buddhism at the Denver Buddhist Temple. Reverend Kanya Okamoto was very down to earth. He looked at it not only from the truth level, but it was also very practical. He would talk about on a Sunday, okay, the Denver Broncos are playing today, so this is what the lesson is all about. Or he would talk about life, and he would talk about things like he might be in trouble with his wife because he forgot to cut the grass on Saturday. So it was how you put the teachings into your everyday life. And I think that's part of it. I think there are people who come to Buddhism because they're searching and maybe they're hurting. That's kind of where I went. I was looking for something to make me feel better because things were not going so well. And it was a way to help me deal with life. And Kanya was the one who gave me the skills, because he showed me, no, it's not just, he didn't just use the terms Dharma and Nembutsu and Pure Land, and because those wouldn't have meant anything to me when I first started. So he got to me from the practical point of view, and then I started into learning more about it. When I became a Dharma school teacher, and for those of you who've ever said, I can't do that because I don't know enough, I started when I knew basically zilch. It was my biggest fear, but my biggest joy, because I learned. I had to learn, and because I'm an educator anyway, but what I had to learn was how to, as I call it, translate what the teachings were, what the truth level, what all of that had to do with the little kids or with the middle school kids, because they wanted to know what was going on in their life. So I had to help translate for them. And I think that's really important. So yes, we have to go beyond the practical. We have to give them more than, okay, here's meditation, do that. Or here's mindful sitting, do that. But we have to start where they are. And where they are is hurting, searching, looking for something to make them feel better. And I think it's like, and I think Reverend Harada had something similar to this. It's kind of like, okay, we're going to make mango bread. Here's the mango, go for it. If you don't walk them through the steps and help them understand how to do it and why to do it a certain way, they're not going to understand, and it will be a flop. So I think we do have to help translate and bring them along the path. But that's what the practical part of it is. Start where they are and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Very good. So you already embody the practical to truth level Buddhism that Reverend Harada proposed. Let's hear.
Well, I am, but I'm also, I looked at all of the questions because Debbie Kubota shared with all of us on the panel the questions that were being asked. And I thought, oh, those are my questions too. We're all fellow travelers. And I like that Bishop said, it's not about the destination, it is the journey. So I'm still on that path, as crooked and curvy as that path might be. I'm still on that path. So, and we all are. Thank you.
Pieper, can you share us your thoughts?
I took the questions that were pre-submitted and I kept it in my head as Bishop Harada was talking. And one of the things that became clear to me was the concern for people to move from practical to truth, and how does that work? And then I recall my experiences at the Pacific Buddhist Academy. When you're working with high school, you have to begin at the practical level, and you have to talk about experiences that students can relate to. And I think this principle applies to everyone who is interested in Jodo Shinshu. And what I mean is this, when you speak to a new seeker, you speak of a very specific experience that they can relate to because they've had that experience. They know that experience. And then you help them identify the emotions and feelings as they're having the experiences. This is at the practical level. Now, once they understand the experiences because they've had it, then you talk about how you respond to that experience. And the response comes out of Buddhist truth, of Shin Buddhist truths. And so this practical to truth, here's one example. Some of us are experiencing great anxiety over what's happening politically, huge anxiety. But we also know the experience of having President Obama and his 8 years. We know that. We knew what it felt like, and we know what it feels like for the last 4 years. Very different experiences. That's real experiences. Now, if you can bring Buddhist truth to how I respond to these real life experiences, then you put individuals on the path from practical to truth. And later on, if the discussion continues, I can point out some responses.
Thank you, Pieper. Let's ask, could I ask Cristina to share with us some of your thoughts?
Hi. So I definitely liked bringing this idea of practical Buddhism to truth level Buddhism. I think especially for younger people, we kind of get like, we can't think that deeply about anything, especially myself included. Like, if people are to ask me like, oh, what does this mean? What is this concept? I always find myself like going and relating it to something in my life, something practical. And I never really thought about that connection till today, how we can see the truth level Buddhism through the practical Buddhism. I just immediately go to practical level Buddhism. So I guess I would say I'm very much still in that practical type of thinking than in the truth level type of thinking. But I think also like how Bishop Harada mentioned in a lot of the examples, people don't really think about it too much until they've gone through some kind of life-changing event or some kind of difficulty. I find myself like too often, I don't think about it until I'm having like a really difficult time or I'm having some kind of life struggle recently with coronavirus. But I think it's important for us to find ways, not only for ourselves, but for others too, especially like younger people. And maybe that's a way we can get them to be more involved in Buddhism too, is just finding ways to relate to even our small struggles or our little everyday things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, maybe I'm a younger person, and I think because I think I'm like you in many ways. But he did say to think about anything that happens can be related to something you've learned in the Buddha's teachings. And Reverend Kerry Kiyohara also knows the answer to many of our questions. So let's ask Reverend Kerry to share with us.
Yep. The answer to every question is Namo Amida Butsu. End of comments. Thank you. No, okay. I give the minister the microphone. He's not going to show up. He's not going to shut up. Well, first, I'm very grateful to the organizers of the Nembutsu seminar It was a wonderful seminar, and and also to say thank you to Bishop Harada, although I know he's not on the line. When I saw the topic, right, so going from practical level Buddhism to truth level Buddhism, it strikes me that when we say practical, I want practical Buddhism, it's transactional. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Oh, Jodo Shinshu. Oh, what's in it for me? Namo Amida Butsu, Nembutsu, Shinjin. What's in it for me? Now, if I say Namo Amida Butsu, then I get something in return, right? Oh, okay. And we just have to, understand that as Americans, culturally, we are conditioned and educated to respond in this way. As Dr. Tamamoto mentioned, I was an advertising man. And if you're in advertising, you wear that as a badge of honor. I was an advertising man. And what do we do in advertising? We take truth, right? Psychological truth. So if I look at the grid, looking at everybody's age, right? Okay, I can place you in a certain place. Ah, okay, retired person, not retired person, okay. Female, male, new to Buddhism, 35-year member of the Hongwanji, right? It's all very different. But what do we do? I say, well, I understand psychologically, I understand where you are, and then I start manipulating you, right? I push your buttons. I mean, that's how advertising works. But I want to make the point that we live in this world. We're surrounded by advertising, social media, the news, what we call the news, what some people call fake news, or so the not so fake news, or whatever you want to call it. News is also designed to sell advertising. Understand that. Entertainment, what you see on Hollywood movies, that's not real, that's Hollywood. But we're trying to sell you an idea. Everyone could be a success. Everyone could be a billionaire. You could have a bigger house. You could have more money. You will never get old. You will never die. You will never suffer. Now, that's what we say in advertising. So new and improved, buy the new iPhone 12. Oh, that's my granddaughter, by the way. Let me do my granddaughter thing. Isn't she cute? Anyway, if you buy this iPhone, it will solve all of your problems. Your friends will respect you. People go, ooh, is that the new iPhone 12? Wow, that's so cool. I wish I had one, right? And you feel superior to people. So when we talk about that which is true and real, so shinjitsu in Japanese, so the Nembutsu is true and real, right? Amida Buddha's Pure Land is true and real. Shinjin is true and real. Everything else is not. So that's the truth right there. That's the big step you have to get beyond. That everything the media shoots at me, all the messages I receive, the entire American culture is based on a very selfish attitude, a self-centered attitude. And this is the first truth of Buddhism that Shakyamuni taught, right? That there is no self. What you think of as the self is an illusion. It's a delusion created by your brain, right? Our five senses are very limited. Our mind, amazing computer, but it is limited. There are limits to the human brain. So when Shinran says, right, Amida's compassion is inconceivable. The word in Japanese is actually fukashigi, which means inconceivable and ineffable. Your brain can't understand it. You don't have the words to explain it. This is the truth that our lives can be touched by this truth. And this is what we are talking about in Jodo Shinshu. Right, so the great compassion, as Bishop Harada said, he translates Shinjin as the true heart and mind of Amida Buddha. So boundless compassion and limitless wisdom. That this is the true heart and mind of Amida, and when you experience the true heart and mind of Amida touching your heart and mind, you will go through a transformation. The problem is you can't explain it, right? And it's really hard to sell this to somebody because, well, if you say Namo Amida Butsu, boom, peace of mind. Namo Amida Butsu, okay. There you go. Oh, but what does it mean? Ah, you want to understand Jodo Shinshu. You want to understand the absolute truth. Not possible. Not possible. Also, does that mean that if I shave my head and become a monk, can I not pay the rent? Can I walk away from my wife? Can I abandon my children? Can I give up my responsibilities? That's what Shakyamuni did. That's what Shakyamuni did. He abandoned his children and he turned his back on his kingdom in search of spiritual truth. So if you're not ready for that kind of commitment, the other paths of Buddhism are pretty challenging, and there is no half-hearted, monk. There's no part-time monk. It just doesn't work that way. And this is what we're trying to show people, is that there is a practical level of Buddhism, the truth of the self doesn't exist, the truth that you will die, you will get old. My advertising magic will convince you that if you use this shampoo, your hair will look shiny and manageable. And your friends will go, Kerry, your hair is so shiny and manageable. You look so young. Which just means, I know you're 60, dude. You're getting pretty old. So that's kind of where I come from. It's that when we look at, well, let's develop a step-by-step how-to book, how to get some Shinjin. But it is an inconceivable, inexplicable experience of the truth touching your heart and mind. Does it make you a better person? No. I'm still the same unpleasant person that I used to be. But I know it. So it's like, very sure. And it's really hard because I have a really big ego. So it's an interesting challenge that if we're talking about transactional spiritual truth. Well, if you become a member and if you come out and give us, say, 100 hours of your time making chow fun so we can raise money for the temple, well, maybe you'll discover the spiritual truth. Well, I mean, I have a whole sermon on how the Hongwanji community actually is Buddhism in practice. But we'll skip over that. I think Dave Atchison mentioned that in the film, that everybody just kind of comes together and things just happen. So for me, it's a very interesting subject, but don't try to understand it, because some things are not understandable by the human mind. But if you don't experience yourself, right, and this is what I'll close with, the first rule of sales is that if you can't sell yourself, if you don't believe in this product, right, if you don't believe the Nembutsu is the truth, you will never be able to convince someone else that it is the truth. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray. That's a that's something that I think, do need to take it hard. That very last statement, especially that you mentioned, that we need to be able to experience that for ourselves. So let me ask Cristina to share with us. This is something that I think all of us have this problem of just going through our daily life. So can you give us an example, one or two, where you find that you think about Namo Amida Butsu, or you feel grateful for something particular that's happened to you that day or that week? Can you share us experience like that?
So I guess like an experience for me recently would be with COVID-19. I know like everybody on a certain level has experienced lots of hardship. Maybe some of us are luckier, like we weren't affected too much, but other people have lost loved ones. But I think for me, like several people in my family had a difficult time, particularly one family member who had mental health problems, and COVID-19, like kind of all of the anxiety surrounding it, I think kind of triggered some of these older problems that he'd been working to overcome. And so for the rest of the family, that was a very scary, stressful thing to go through over the next couple of months. But I think like I kind of got to a point where it's like, oh my gosh, like this is the end of the world. Everything's like messed up. I'm so stressed out. I'm like going to school full time, trying to work. And then I have all these like different things that are going on at home. And I don't know, like, is everything going to be okay? Is it not going to be okay? And I kind of hit the point where it's like, you know, it's going to be okay. I just have to like take a breath, relax, and just kind of think about it like we've had different struggles and everything will turn out okay one way or another. And for me, that's kind of like a time when I go back to some of the Buddhist teachings, like, you know, there's suffering, and then other things too, like interdependence. Like, you know, I'm still very lucky that I have like such a great support system and everybody's working together and we'll get through it that way. If I just like put it all on myself, then I start to panic and freak out. But I realized too that I don't think about like going back to Buddhist teachings to kind of like ease my mind until something big like that happens. So I think after today's talk, I'm like, oh, you know, maybe that'll help me more in my life, just to kind of get through things and be less stressed out if I go back to the teachings more often.
Yes, thank you. Pieper, I know that at one time, and I'm sorry, not at one time, but you have been encouraging us to think about those Namo Ami Dabutsu moments, or talking about thinking about having gratitude in our lives. Maybe do you want to share a little bit about how you see things or how you explain this?
One thing I want to say before I do this is that I think Reverend Kerry's wrong in that inconceivable, incomprehensible ideas can be understood, but only through experience. And now let me get back to Namo Ami Dabutsu. So, and this is something that I learned by talking to students. You start with the experience. So you make them pay attention to their very common everyday experiences, okay? So for all of us, if we begin to pay attention to very ordinary experiences, and we can do this, like the cup that you use for your coffee every day. We don't pay attention to that, but tomorrow morning we start paying attention to that, okay? The smallest of things, paying attention to your car, or pay attention to your wife or your husband, or pay attention to your kids. Pay attention means seeing them, hearing them, touching them, smelling them, but it is truly getting beyond just the object that is in front of you, okay? So when you begin to do that, then you can say, how fortunate I am, how lucky that I have this. But we cannot say that unless you see it and feel it and hear it. And that's where the Namo Ami Dabutsu and the gratitude fails. It fails because we never see it. But once you see it, then Namo Ami Dabutsu becomes very natural. So the training then, if there's going to be any training or practice, is about seeing things. The best of moments and the worst of moments. And then saying to yourself, how fortunate I am. And then, Namo Ami Dabutsu. That, by the way, process and experience is very understandable to even someone who's never heard of Shin Buddhism and Namo Ami Dabutsu. As long as they understand in the beginning that Namo Ami Dabutsu is just the sound of thank you and gratitude. I experience, I know that I am a fortunate human being. Even though I don't deserve it, I am fortunate. Thank you. That is the Nembutsu moment. That is gratitude. And it's real and it works. So Namwami Dabutsu is very, very real because it is responding to something the person actually sees and hears and feels right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Pieper. Let's see, do any of our panelists want to respond? Carol or Cristina or Reverend Kerry?
Sure. Thank you very much, Pieper. I appreciate your insights. But I will say this, experience by definition is based on perception, conception, volition, and interpretation. In other words, as Shakyamuni Buddha taught, the 5 skandhas, right? The 5 aggregates, right? Which tend to drive our perspective. So I experience something, I understand it this way, I must be right. Now, for me to believe that, I must believe in your authority as a spiritual person. Or there's going to be doctrinal or scriptural basis for this, which means I have to, accept the translation, or that these records are actually accurate. So how do you transcend that? And this is where I think the Nembutsu experience, the experience of Shinjin, the experience of being assured of salvation, in the sense of I will be born in the Pure Land after I die. Okay, I will not go to hell. I will not go, with all due respect, I will not go to the Christian hell because somebody judges me and says, Kerry, you did 5 good things, but 6 bad things, you're going straight to hell. And then for eternity, I burn, fire and brimstone, right? Yeah, that's pretty scary. Maybe I should go to Christian church just in case the Nembutsu is not true and real. Okay, and this is the heart of doubt, the mind of doubt that Shinran keeps addressing. So yeah.
Let me, I think that we are working on 2 different planes because—
Practical and true?
Yes. And all I'm saying is that when I look at my coffee cup in the morning, my favorite coffee cup, that is real and true. I know exactly what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing. Okay, that is real and true. And yeah, it's subjective experience. But for me, the coffee cup is real and true. And when I say Namo Amida Butsu, because this coffee cup is part of my life, okay? And I'm so grateful that this is my life. That Namo Amida Butsu is real and true for that moment for me there. And that experience, I'm saying that this is the experience that we all have to have over and over and over and over again, okay? And then all the things you're saying just now becomes understandable. But if you don't have that experience, we can never understand what you're saying right now.
Are we having a debate? Is it my turn?
No, I'm just making it. What I want to do is I don't want to get away from the reality of the practical level that we're in. We all are at that practical level, and it will lead to the truth level. It will lead to the truth level as long as Namo Amida Butsu is constantly, if we say it, when we feel grateful. And then it's automatic. It'll happen. But we have to start at the truth level. I mean, at the practical level, the stuff that's happening right before our very eyes every day. That's what I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you, Pieper and Reverend Kerry. So I do want to give our other panelists a chance.
Warren, can
Yes.
one of the things as I was sitting here listening, I thought, it's almost the thing that we're talking, that Buddhism teaches us is it's not either or. It's not, the dualistic kind of thing. And it almost feels like we're talking about either your practical or your truth level.
Mhm.
And I, in my limited foolish being, I see that we go back and forth constantly. I think we may hit the truth level and then something happens in our life and it's like, oh, maybe that's more practical, or something else happens. I think for me, I'm constantly going back and forth. Whatever happens in my life reminds me of the truth, but then something else happens and something goes on. And I look at all the concepts, and part of that is, and I don't know where that is, the practical or the truth, the impermanence, and kind of as Cristina was talking about, that's what helps me. I get the practical part from the gratitude and the compassion and the impermanence and interdependence, and it's like, okay, it's not going to stay this way all the time. I know that things will happen, but then I really see, I had a thought. As a teacher, I'm always trying to think of metaphors and everything else. So I thought of the game of Chutes and Ladders, for those of you who've played that with your grandkids or your children. And Chutes and Ladders, you go up and sometimes you land on this special little spot and all of a sudden you get to climb the ladder. And wow, that's kind of like, maybe you hit a little bit of Shinjin, but then further on you hit a ladder, or it's the chute, and you go back down again. So it's kind of like, that's sort of the game of life. It Chutes and Ladders, and we go back and forth all the time. And for me, it helps me see what I'm doing, my own behavior. And sometimes I see what I do and think, oh, that's okay. And other times I think, oh, as I used to tell my Dharma students, that's not very Buddhist of me. And maybe that was just an example I used to help them understand we're not perfect, and we don't get to that perfect state of wherever and stay there. It's back and forth. That's just me.
I would say that is, I think you are reflecting what most of us experience, Carol. And that is, yes, I was really influenced by Reverend Harada's examples, especially the one he gave of the person with ALS who wrote that poem about he's grateful for everything until the end. And then Namo Amidam. So that was a really nice poem. So I guess, and some of it is, I think, for Reverend Kerry, but not that I'm arguing with Reverend Kerry, but so I guess the question is that sensation that you have when you read that poem, and it has an effect on you. So is that true and real? The reading of a poem that resonates with you, so that you think differently when you read something like that. So is that true and real?
I think the emotion, the feeling, and everything that came to you when you heard that poem, that's the brush with the truth level. We touched the truth level there. And I think that's what the importance of poems like that and stories like that. The truth becomes real and understandable. So, yes.
For that person.
Yes, when you hear it and you feel it, and it almost brings tears to your eyes, or you have great emotion, then you're brushing with the truth.
I would ask, I would say to participants, if you go to the bottom of your screen and if you click on your chat button, you'll see a couple of comments. A couple of comments at the very bottom, one by Igor, who says Shinran is quoted in the Tanisho saying that he would not regret going to hell with the Nembutsu, since he is not capable of any other practice anyway. So thank you, Igor. And then Dave Atchison says he agrees with Carol, I think, thinking of the path as a circle or oval instead of linear. Passing truth level, going back to the practical, helps to deepen his understanding of the Dharma, which comes the Dharma talk next Sunday, which helps him in a practical situation, and I guess around and around. So I think that reflects maybe all of us in a little bit of way. Cristina, you think that kind of reflects how you live or how you think?
Yes, definitely. I think so. Especially like for me, I find myself like on Sundays, you think about it, you listen to the Dharma talk, and then like maybe it's not being a good Buddhist, but I don't like think about the Nembutsu again until I need it for something to help me in a practical situation, or until the next Dharma talk, and then it's like, oh, okay, I understand it again, and then I'm kind of like going back to my practical life, and then see, oh, this is how this teaching can help me.
You're like most of us. We're all the same way.
I'm very simple-minded, I think, more so than most people.
We all are. Maybe Reverend David Fujimoto. He's I know, a moderator. And do you have a few thoughts you could share with us?
Like on what?
On life and the truth.
You know, I kind of have that same perspective of Bishop, in which there is that disconnect. And a lot of the times, you know, we do have a hard time trying to make that connection. And, you know, really it is being thankful for that coffee cup in the morning. You know, for myself, I just got out of the hospital, and, you know, you really don't see you really aren't appreciative of things that we take for granted in life. You know, that through my stay in the hospital, you know, I wasn't able to take a shower. So going home and actually standing under that hot shower, I was just so appreciative in that moment. But a lot of the times we don't share that moment. And so I think we have to shed that kind of shell, I guess, and be able to feel, us as ministers anyway, we have to be able to share those feelings, our thoughts, our dreams, our nightmares, our feelings, our personal life, you know, because after all, at the end of the day, you know, we're human ourselves. Yeah, so to me, that is where the connection lies between the truth level and the practical side. And, you know, until we can be comfortable with that, I think there is going to be that continued discord. So we need to kind of, I guess, reach outside of the box and just share even those small moments in life. Then, you know, you'd be surprised how many people can actually connect, can actually, you know, understand what you're going through. Then that way, the teachings, Nembutsu moments, does come out.
Maybe the panelists could let us, maybe if you want to share, maybe one thing you do as you go about life, as you go about your day or your week, that makes you, or that reminds you to think about the Nembutsu. Is there something that comes across you or that you think about that makes you think about the Nembutsu?
I'd like to make a suggestion. and it works for me. And it works for many, many people. And that is making a gratitude list or Nembutsu moment list every day. So every day you have a journal, same journal now, and you write in it and make a list. And you can repeat items on the list. So you sit there, you listen, you think about yesterday, right now, and you just write. And I used to do it 10 times. I used to force myself to write 10 things right there. And what happens is that you really begin to look at the most ordinary things in your life. So that coffee cup of mine got on that list a lot. And then Lois got on that list as well too.
Finally.
Yeah. So anyways, and every time you write one item, you just say Namo Amida Butsu, Namandab, 10 times. And you'll be surprised at how and when you will say Namandab or Namo Amida Butsu when you're not near your list, when you're just walking around, because your list makes you look at things more.
Thank you. Anyone else? Reverend Kerry, Carol.
One of the things, and I like Piper's idea of the gratitude, and part of it, I would give a shout out to BJ Soriano. One of her songs is Say the Nembutsu. And I think most of the time, at least for me, I always thought, oh, when you're feeling down and when things are not going right, that's when we tend to say Namo Amida Butsu. But her song, the words on it say, when you're happy, that's when you say it too. It's not just those times that go bad. It's the times that are good, which is kind of what Piper's talking about. When things go right, when things are good and you're happy, that's a good time to say Namo Amida Butsu. I think for me, sometimes, I mean, everything in life is a Dharma message. I always say that. Everything is there. And sometimes I forget. And it's usually when I'm caught up in a moment of being upset or being angry or whatever, and it hits me as like, okay, wait a minute. And I do need to say Namo Amida Butsu. I need to calm myself down because it's going to go away anyway. It is impermanent. I need to do a little bit better with that. But I think when things are bad, when things are good, that's when we need to make sure we say Namo Amida Butsu. So thank you, Piper.
Thank you. Any other comments?
You know, one of the things that I've been very grateful for, you know, and it kind of goes along with this gratitude jar and all that kind of stuff, is somebody gave me a deck of these things here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's called, it's a deck of Aloha cards, Actions of Aloha. And, you know, every day you pick out a card and, you know, and it kind of encourages you to love, compassion, kindness, you know, all that stuff that we're kind of always talking about. And, you know, of course, and there's a lot of things that we can follow, right? I don't know if you guys can see this, but say 3 things that you're grateful for. Of course, Bishop talked about write a letter to someone and open it up in a year. And of course, one of the things that I think many of us are doing right now, write a letter to essential workers and thank them for their service. So, you know, there is a lot of things that can bridge, the practical side with the practical side. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Reverend Kerry, you had a comment?
Okay, I just wanted to say that as a minister and choosing the life of a minister, becoming a Buddhist priest, you choose every moment of every day to think about Amida's compassion. Right? So when I wake up in the morning, it's like, okay, I got to put my white shirt on, I got to put my robes on, I got to put my kesa on, and go to the temple to do the sunrise service at 6:30 in the morning every morning. And then go into the columbarium to do the Eitaikyo chanting for that day. And then have breakfast, which is like, ooh, that's good. Thanks for that. And then spend, have a standard 8-hour, 9-hour day in the office doing things. And then at night to think about, writing a sermon for Sunday, or, oh my God, am I going to do the children's Dharma story time? Oh, I used that puppet last week. I need a new puppet. Oh, I hope there's more puppets in the box. Does it make me grateful? Yeah, no, I mean, half the time I'm really irritated that I have to join all these meetings and stuff that don't go anywhere, or there's all this administrative stuff, or, oh, I forgot to write the article for the newsletter. All of this is Namo Amida Butsu. So if you need a reason to say Namo Amida Butsu, no. If you have to feel happy or feel bad or respond, just say Namo Amida Butsu all the time. So the Jodoshu, the other, the Honen's teachings, it's very simple. His most famous quote is, quote, just say the Nembutsu and be saved by Amida. Nothing else is involved, end quote. And Shinran is recorded as saying this all the time. So when we get to the, well, I'm kind of embarrassed to say Namo Amida Butsu. When I go to Zippy's and before we start the meal, it's like, Namanda Butsu Naman. Yeah, that's a little rude. Okay, I don't do that. But the fact that we don't, we need a reason to say Namo Amida Butsu. That, I argue, is the flaw in our teaching methodology for the past 100 years. Okay, so if someone walks in the door, it's like, welcome to the temple. Please join me. Here's how you put your hands together. Here, I'll lend you my nenju. Put your hands together. Let's go say hi to Amida. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Right? If we're not explaining that, if we're not getting someone who walks in the front door to say Namo Amida Butsu, what are we doing? Why are we here? Because usually what happens is people say Namo Amida Butsu. Well, that didn't do anything. Explain to me why that is. And never ask a minister that question, because we study this stuff, and it's, it's the virtue of Amida plus the practice. It's all perfected and all in one. And Vasubandhu said this. And what people really say is, no, what am I saying? Right? And why should I believe that? Why should I believe that? It's a long journey. So please come along. It takes a while. It takes a while. So I just wanted to say that if you really want to experience Namo Amida Butsu every day, become a priest, become a minister, and you will have Namo Amida Butsu hit you in the face every moment of every day. Simple as that. You don't have to become a better person. You don't have to become virtuous. I'm still the same not so nice word, which I'll delete here because I'm in front of Amida. So impure word goes here. I'm such a, and it hasn't changed. Fundamentally, that is who I am. But because I'm such a not so nice person, that's why Amida's compassion reaches out to me. That's why the wisdom of Buddhism has been in front of me all these years. And I've got it in little bits and pieces, but I've ignored most of it most of my life. That's the difference. Right? So it's one thing to talk about, well, you should say Namo Amida Butsu. But the vision of my grandmother on my mother's side, it's like, oh, Nembutsu deru kana? Can you say the Nembutsu? Does the Nembutsu just come out of your mouth? She was notorious for this. It's a different story. But I look at myself and go, well, I tell people to say Namo Amida Butsu, but do I say it myself? Ouch, I just dropped my iPad and cracked the screen. Namo Amida Butsu. No, I tend to say the bad word. But that's who I am. And that's why Amida accepts me just the way I am. And that's why I feel humbled. I feel humiliated. How embarrassing. I'm 60. I'm a grandfather. I'm supposed to be better than that. But the truth is I am not. I'm self-centered. I'm egocentric. I'm egotistical. I'm arrogant. This is who I am. It's not going to change even if I sit in meditation every day. It's not going to change. This is who I am. Amida knew that. That's why he's always grinning at me. He's like, told you so, told you so. You know, from when I was a kid, I've been hearing Nam Mô Amida Butsu. And it took me until like 55 years later to actually figure out, oh, he's talking to me. Oh, yes. And when you actually listen to Nam Mô Amida Butsu, and if you let it, if you allow it to, if you can get your ego out of the way, it will transform you. It will change you. But you won't be able to explain it to anybody.
Let me tell you a story regarding to, you can't explain it to anybody. So I'm talking to a person, we Facebook message, and he's not a Buddhist, he's Christian. Well, he's not practicing anything. And one day he asked me about, he knew I was a Buddhist, he asked me about Buddhism. And I told him, and our conversation started, but I told him this, he's a real great outdoors person. He hikes a lot. And I said, when you hike and you come across the most beautiful scene, it takes your breath away. And you're so, the feeling of being there and seeing that just overwhelms you. And he said, oh, yes, I know that feeling. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had that feeling many times. And I said, well, as a Shin Buddhist, if I had the exact same feeling and in that experience, I would say Nam Mandab as an expression of extreme gratitude for where I am, who I am, and experiencing that. And it's just an expression of gratitude. Well, he understood that exactly. He knew what I was talking about. And then later on in our conversations, now we talk about Nam Mandab moments and finding those moments, okay? So here is someone who had no idea of Nam Mandab, nothing. And now we're in a place where we're talking about Nam Mô Amida Butsu moments. So someone who knows nothing can come up to and get a brush with the wonder of Nam Mô Amida Butsu. And I think that guy gets it. And the more he says it, and he's saying it now, that he will come to the truth level. So that, I think those experiences are very, very important for ministers to understand and explain to all new seekers when you talk about Nam Mô Amida Butsu, because everybody has experienced Nam Mô Amida Butsu moments. They just didn't know the word.
Okay, thank you, Pieper. And thank you, Reverend Kerry, for your comments before that. Actually, when Reverend Kerry, you were talking about your pathway to Buddhism, I was thinking about Cristina, because Cristina, you don't have to worry until age 55, which is when it finally got through to Reverend Kerry, apparently. So are you surprised to find that out?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's comforting to know that I have a long time, hopefully. But I also wanted to mention, I saw in the comments here something that I can definitely relate to now. Florence Hosai said, it's so easy for me to say thank you or arigato when I feel gratitude, but saying Namanda Butsu has helped me through many difficult times, or when I was so bothered that I couldn't fall asleep. Am I the only one? I think that's something that right now, in my simple-mindedness, is something I can really relate to, especially like if you listen to what Bishop Harada said earlier, Shinran Shonin's words that everything is false and temporary, Nembutsu, which is true and real. So I think when we say Namanda Butsu, we kind of like find this comfort of like, you know, I'm not perfect, everyone's not perfect, and everything's impermanent. So you find this comfort in saying the Nembutsu because it's true and real, and it kind of helps you through situations. But then also going back to like what Pieper Toyama was saying, like, also when we just have like these overwhelming moments or when we feel like this very deep gratitude too, I think it's important for us to say Namo Amida Butsu. We're also experiencing. So on both sides, like the helping, comforting us through difficult times, but also like, wow, I'm so grateful to be able to experience this.
I think what we're hearing is that we've heard from about 5 or 6 people, and plus Bishop Harada. So it sounds like everyone is kind of on the path. That path intersects and winds, as Carol mentioned, and clearly not the same for each one of us. So let's say there is at the very bottom chat, just a comment, I think, from Charlene Kiyohara. This is what I try to just explaining what she does every day. I go out in nature, even if it is just for a moment, I feel peace. However, I make it more meaningful. My walk takes me to a Bodhi tree. Spending this time under the Bodhi tree, I imagine Shakyamuni Buddha looking up at the leaves of the tree and the light coming through the leaves. So thank you, Charlene, for sharing that with us. Let's see, I think we just have a few minutes left, so 5 minutes left. Does anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question? We probably have time for 1 or 2 questions that you could raise by unmuting yourself.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, I heard that this was recorded. Will this be available for other members to view, or temple members?
We haven't made the decision on how we're going to be releasing it for general use. So, but we will keep everyone informed when we do make that available, and how we're going to do that. Thanks for the question, Dean.
So I want to thank our 4 panelists, Carol, Pieper, Cristina, Kerry. I want to thank Reverend David for stepping in also, and certainly Reverend Harada. I think the committee dean is going to look into that. So we'll be discussing your recommendation. I want to just go ahead and turn it over to Reverend David Fujimoto for closing comments in Nembutsu.
Okay, so if I hope all of you enjoyed today's presentation. Please help us to continue to bring more of these talks to you. We do have a link in the chat, and also somewhere else, I believe, to donate to the Honpa Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii Buddhist Education. So please consider donating. We will be emailing evaluations to you. So please be on the lookout for that. One of the things that Bishop Harada, we were kind of joking around with before the presentation was his message that is available via the phone. So it's entitled Dial the Dharma. It's a 5-minute Dharma message available both in English and Japanese. The telephone number is 1-415-528-7220. Okay, so once again, it's Dial the Dharma. It's a 5-minute Dharma message available both in Japanese and in English. 1-415-528-7220. Okay, other than that, if there's nothing else, let's close with the recitation of Nembutsu. If you could please join me with your palms put together, and let's recite Namo Amida Nembutsu together. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.